Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. His ship had been exploring the outer edges of known space for 6 months now, looking for new worlds and new life. The crew was tired but excited because today they had found something amazing. "Captain, we are getting signals from an unknown ship," said Lieutenant Emma Gray from her station. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. "The signals are not like anything we have seen before." Jake walked over to her station and looked at the data on her screen. The patterns were complex and clearly made by intelligent beings. After 300 years of space travel, humans had found many planets but never another species that could build spaceships. "Send a peaceful greeting message," Jake ordered. "Use all the basic math and science signals we prepared for." This moment, Dr. Lisa Park, the ship's expert on alien life, was already working at her station. She had dreamed of this day since she was a child. "I am sending pictures and sounds that show we are peaceful," she said. "Basic numbers, our solar system location, and images of humans helping each other." The answer came faster than expected. A massive ship appeared on their screens, bigger than anything humans had ever built. It was dark metal with strange blue lights running along its sides. The ship was at least 10 times larger than the Defiance. "They are sending a response," Emma reported. "The computer is trying to translate it now." The translation came through, the speakers in a cold, mechanical voice. "Small ship with unknown beings, you will provide your location of origin and submit to Zephyrian authority. Your species will be evaluated for usefulness to the Empire. Resistance will result in immediate destruction." Jake felt his heart sink. This was not the peaceful first contact that humans had hoped for. "Dr. Park, send another message explaining that we come in peace and want to talk." The response was swift and harsh. "Your peaceful intentions are noted and rejected. All species encountered by the Zephyrian Empire must submit or be eliminated. You have 1 rotation of your planet to comply." More ships began appearing around them. Jake counted at least 20 vessels, each one larger and more powerful than anything in the human fleet. The Defiance was alone, far from Earth, with no backup coming. "Captain," called Commander Alex Turner from the communication station. "I am getting reports from our deep space sensors. There is a huge fleet moving toward our space. Hundreds of ships, all heading toward Earth." Jake's blood turned cold. These aliens had somehow traced their signals back to human space. Earth was in danger, and there was nothing they could do to warn them in time. Admiral Kane Rodriguez appeared on the main screen through a quantum communication link. His face was serious and tired. "Jake, we are tracking the alien fleet. What is the situation out there?" "Admiral, they call themselves the Zephyrian Empire," Jake replied. "They want us to surrender completely, or they will destroy us. They seem to have done this many times before." The Zephyrian ship sent another message. "You will now provide exact coordinates to your homeworld and all colony locations. Your species will be processed according to Imperial standards. Those suitable for labor will be preserved. Others will be eliminated." Admiral Rodriguez's face grew hard. "Jake, get back here as fast as possible. We need every ship and every piece of information you can gather." "Admiral, I request permission to engage the enemy," Jake said. "We might be able to learn something about their technology or slow them down." "Jake, you are 1 ship against 20. That would be suicide." "Maybe, sir, but if we run now, we learn nothing. If we fight, we might discover their weaknesses." "Alex." Turner stepped forward. "Captain, my ship is also here. The UES Guardian is ready to fight alongside you." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was scared but determined. Emma was checking weapons systems. Dr. Park was recording everything about the alien ships. Nobody suggested surrender or retreat. "Admiral, humans have never backed down from a fight when innocent people were in danger." "We will not start now." The Zephyrian commander's voice came through the speakers again. Your delay is noted. Begin immediate surrender procedures or face destruction. Jake took a deep breath. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiance. We reject your demands and refuse to surrender. If you want information about humanity, you will have to take it from our wreckage. The alien ships immediately opened fire. Energy beams cut through space toward the two human vessels. Jake ordered all power to shields and weapons. The Defiance shook as alien weapons hit their protective barriers. Return fire, Jake ordered. Show them what humans are made of. The small human ships fired back with everything they had. Their weapons seemed tiny compared to the alien vessels, but they struck with precision and determination. Alex Turner's ship dove toward the largest Zephyrian vessel, firing constantly. Jake, their shields are stronger than ours, but their ships are slow, Alex reported through the communication system. We can outrun them if we stay close and use our speed. For 30 minutes, the two human ships danced between the alien giants, striking and moving, never staying still long enough to be caught. They caused some damage, but took much more. The Guardian's engines were failing, and the Defiance had lost most of its weapons. Jake, I am going to ram the command ship, Alex announced. Maybe that will give you time to escape and warn Earth. Alex, no. We can find another way. There is no other way, my friend. Tell Earth that humans do not surrender. Tell them we fought to the end. Alex Turner's ship accelerated toward the largest Zephyrian vessel. His engines overloaded just before impact, creating a massive explosion that tore through the alien ship's hull. The Guardian was destroyed, but it took the Zephyrian command vessel with it. Jake used the confusion to escape, jumping to faster-than-light speed toward Earth. Behind him, the remaining Zephyrian ships seemed stunned by what had happened. In their thousands of years of conquest, no species had ever fought back so fiercely when facing impossible odds. High Commander Vextall received the report with confusion. Two small ships had destroyed one of his best vessels and escaped. The unknown species had refused surrender, even when facing certain death. This had never happened before in the Empire's long history of conquest. As Jake raced toward Earth, he carried a message that would change everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their new neighbors wanted them dead or enslaved. But the aliens had learned something too. They had met a species that would rather die fighting than live as slaves. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. Jake Morrison's ship burst out of faster-than-light travel near Earth, its engine smoking and hull scarred from the battle. He had pushed the Defiance harder than ever before to bring the warning home. The beautiful blue planet hung in space, ahead of him, peaceful and unaware of the danger racing toward it. Earth Command, this is Captain Morrison with emergency priority message. He spoke into his communication system. We have made contact with a hostile alien empire. They are coming here with a massive fleet. President Maria Santos was in an emergency meeting within hours. The leaders of Earth and all the human colonies gathered in the secure command center deep under the capital city. Jake stood before them, still wearing his damaged uniform, and told them everything. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered thousands of species, Jake explained. They see us as either slaves or obstacles to be removed. Their fleet is at least 1,000 ships strong and will be here in less than a month. General Ryan Blake, the head of Earth's military forces, studied the data Jake had brought back. Their technology is far ahead of ours. Our best ships would be like insects against their giants. Dr. Sam Collins, Earth's top scientist, was already working on the alien technology samples Jake had managed to collect. Their energy weapons are powerful, but their ships seem to rely on heavy shielding rather than speed or maneuvers. We might be able to use that against them. President Santos looked around the room at the worried faces. What are our options? General? We can surrender and hope they treat us well as slaves, Blake said grimly. We can evacuate as many people as possible to the outer colonies and hope some humans survive. Or we can fight. Fighting would be suicide, said Defense Minister Carol Wright. "We would be throwing away human lives for nothing." Intelligence Officer Beth Williams stepped forward with a data pad. "Actually, ma'am, I have been monitoring alien communications since Captain Morrison returned. The Zephyrians are confused by what happened at the first contact. They have never encountered a species that fought back when facing overwhelming odds." "What do you mean?" asked President Santos. "Every species they have conquered either surrendered immediately or fought briefly before giving up. But humans kept fighting even when death was certain. They do not understand this behavior, and it makes them nervous." Dr. Collins looked up from his work. "I have been studying the weapon damage on Captain Morrison's ship. Their technology is advanced, but not impossible to understand. Give me time and resources, and I can build weapons that will hurt them." General Blake nodded slowly. "If we are going to fight, we need every advantage possible. What about our allies in the outer colonies?" "Already contacted," said Communications Director Paul Carter. "Colony Administrator Helen Ross on Mars is converting all mining equipment to military use. The asteroid belt miners are gathering every rock they can move. Even the civilian transport ships are volunteering to fight." President Santos was amazed. "The civilian ships want to fight a space empire?" "Yes, ma'am," Carter replied. "Captain Steve Davis of the Merchant Fleet said his exact words were, 'If aliens think they can come to human space and push us around, they picked the wrong species.'" Meanwhile, in a completely different part of the galaxy, War Marshal Krevar was preparing his invasion fleet. He had conquered 47 worlds for the Zephyrian Empire and expected this to be an easy victory. The intelligence reports about the first contact battle troubled him, but he assumed it was just unusual luck. "High Commander Vextal wants this species eliminated quickly," his aide reported. "They are concerned about the resistance shown in the first battle." "One ship fighting before destruction means nothing," Krevar replied. "When they see our full fleet, they will surrender like all the others." Back on Earth, something incredible was happening. Instead of panic and evacuation, humans were volunteering for military service in numbers that amazed their leaders. Factory worker Mike Johnson had converted his entire manufacturing plant to produce weapons and armor. Teacher Karen Davis was organizing civilian resistance groups in every city. Even teenagers like Danny Foster were contributing. The 16-year-old computer expert had hacked into the alien communication systems and was learning their language and codes. "Their security is strong but not perfect," he told Dr. Collins. "I can get us access to their fleet communications." Dr. Park had returned from the first contact with valuable information about Zephyrian biology and psychology. "They are a very old species," she explained to the military leaders. "They have been conquering for so long that they expect every encounter to follow the same pattern. They do not adapt well to unexpected situations." General Blake was amazed by what he was seeing across human space. "In all my years of military service, I have never seen anything like this. Usually, when people face impossible odds, they become divided and frightened. But humans are uniting and becoming more determined." Commander Alex Turner's sacrifice had inspired millions of people. His final message, "Tell Earth that humans do not surrender," became a rallying cry across all human worlds. Memorial services turned into recruitment drives. People were not just willing to fight, they were eager to prove that humanity would not bow to alien masters. Captain Morrison was given command of a new ship, another Defiance built faster than ever before using Dr. Collins's improved designs. Lieutenant Emma Gray worked with him to develop new fighting tactics based on speed and unpredictability rather than trying to match alien firepower. "We cannot win by being stronger," Emma explained to the gathered ship commanders, "but we can win by being braver, faster, and more willing to take risks than they expect." Dr. Collins made his first breakthrough when he successfully adapted Zephyrian energy technology to human weapons. Their power systems are incredibly efficient, he told President Santos. But they are also designed for species that fight in predictable ways. Our willingness to use desperate tactics gives us options they have never planned for. The Mars colonies under Helen Ross had become a massive weapons factory. The asteroid miners were creating a defensive field of rocks and metal around Earth's solar system. Every human world was contributing something to the defense. Most importantly, the human spirit was stronger than ever. People were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the right to remain free and human. Surrender was not even discussed as an option anymore. War Marshal Krevar received reports that confused him. The human worlds were not evacuating or surrendering. Instead, they were preparing for war with an enthusiasm that his analysts could not explain. Perhaps they do not understand the size of our fleet, he told his officers. But High Commander Vextal was beginning to suspect something different. The species they had encountered might be fundamentally different from all the others. The database contained records of over 10,000 conquered races, but none had shown this pattern of increased resistance when facing annihilation. As the Zephyrian fleet moved closer to human space, both sides prepared for a battle that would determine the future of humanity. The aliens expected another routine conquest. The humans were preparing to prove that some species cannot be conquered because they refuse to accept the possibility of defeat. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of his new ship, looking out at the fleet of human vessels gathering around Earth. They were smaller and fewer than the enemy ships, but every human crew was ready to fight to the death for their freedom. The greatest test in human history was about to begin. The Zephyrian Armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark storm cloud blotting out the stars. 1,000 ships of various sizes spread across space, their hulls gleaming with alien metal and pulsing with blue energy. War Marshal Krevar stood on the bridge of his flagship, expecting to see a desperate human fleet fleeing toward their homeworld. Instead, he found humans waiting for him. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the human defensive fleet from his position, near Earth's moon. 200 ships faced the alien armada. Mining vessels converted to warships, passenger transports fitted with weapons, and military ships built in the past month using every resource humanity could gather. They were vastly outnumbered, but not one human ship showed any sign of retreat. "War Marshal, the small beings are not fleeing," reported his tactical officer. "They appear to be forming battle lines." Krevar studied the formation with confusion. In his experience, inferior species either surrendered immediately upon seeing his full fleet or scattered in panic. These humans were actually preparing to fight against impossible odds. "Send the standard surrender demand," he ordered. "Perhaps they need to understand the hopelessness of their situation." The message reached Jake Morrison's fleet in multiple human languages. The translation was clear: submit to Zephyrian rule or face complete annihilation. Jake looked around his bridge at the determined faces of his crew. Lieutenant Emma Gray was checking weapon systems. Dr. Lisa Park was recording everything for future generations, if any survived. "Open a channel to all human ships," Jake commanded. "This is Captain Morrison to all vessels. The aliens want us to surrender and become their slaves. What is your response?" The communications filled with voices from across the human fleet. Miners, merchants, soldiers, and civilians all gave the same answer in different words: "We refuse, we fight." Colonel Jack Barnes, commanding a group of ships loaded with nuclear weapons, spoke for many when he said, "Captain, my ships are ready to ram their biggest vessels. If we are going to die today, let us die as humans who never bowed to alien masters." Jake opened a channel to the Zephyrian fleet. "War Marshal Krevar, this is Captain Jake Morrison representing humanity. We have received your surrender demand and we reject it completely. If you want Earth, you will have to take it from our wreckage." Krevar was stunned. No species had ever rejected surrender when facing his full armada. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Destroy them quickly and advance to their homeworld." The space battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Zephyrian ships opened fire with massive energy weapons that could destroy human vessels with single hits. But the humans did not fight the way other species fought. Colonel Barnes led the first attack, accelerating his nuclear-armed ships directly at the largest Zephyrian vessels. Instead of trying to survive, the humans used their ships as weapons. Massive explosions tore through the alien formation as human vessels sacrificed themselves to damage their enemies. "They are ramming our ships," the Zephyrian tactical officer reported in shock. "They are using their vessels as guided weapons." Pilot Amy Roberts and her fighter squadron used the asteroid field near Mars as ammunition. Her ships pushed massive rocks to incredible speeds, hurling them at the alien fleet like giant bullets. The Zephyrians had shields that could stop energy, weapons, but mountain-sized asteroids moving at enormous speeds were something different. Dr. Sam Collins' new weapons proved their worth when human ships began firing modified nuclear torpedoes that could penetrate Zephyrian shields. Engineer Tony Clark had fitted human ships with alien energy systems captured from the first battle, giving them firepower far beyond their original design. But what shocked the Zephyrians most was the human refusal to retreat even when their situation became hopeless. Lieutenant Frank Kelly's ship was badly damaged, and his crew was dying. But instead of surrendering or fleeing, he crashed his vessel into a Zephyrian command ship, destroying both. Sergeant Kate Murphy led a desperate boarding action when her ship was captured. Instead of becoming prisoners, the human crew fought hand-to-hand inside the alien vessel, causing so much damage that the ship had to be abandoned. "War Marshal, we have lost 37 ships," reported the tactical officer. "The humans have lost 60% of their fleet, but they continue fighting with increased intensity." Creever could not understand what he was seeing. "When do they surrender? When do they ask for mercy?" "Sir, they seem to fight harder when their losses increase. This behavior is not in our database for any known species." High Commander Vextal, monitoring the battle from the Zephyrian capital, watched the reports with growing alarm. His forces were supposed to be finishing a routine conquest, but they were taking losses that would normally require a major campaign against an advanced enemy. Back in the battle, Jake Morrison's ship was surrounded by alien vessels, its shields failing and weapons nearly destroyed. Emma Gray reported that they had maybe 10 minutes of life support remaining. Any reasonable species would surrender at this point. "Captain, the aliens are offering to accept our surrender," she reported. "Tell them we are humans," Jake replied. "We do not surrender. All remaining power to weapons. We are going to hurt them as much as possible before we die." The Defiance accelerated toward the Zephyrian flagship, its remaining weapons firing constantly. Just before impact, Dr. Park activated the ship's self-destruct system, creating an explosion that damaged Creevar's command vessel. But Jake Morrison did not die that day. At the last moment, Admiral Kane Rodriguez arrived with the Earth Defense Fleet, ships that had been protecting the homeworld itself. The new arrivals gave the surviving human vessels a chance to regroup. "All human ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. We are not finished fighting. Earth still stands, and so do we." The battle continued for 6 more hours. The humans lost ship after ship, but each loss was traded for damage to the alien fleet. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting an enemy. That became more dangerous as defeat became more certain. Engineer Tony Clark, his ship crippled and crew dead, managed to overload his engines inside a Zephyrian formation, destroying 4 alien vessels. Merchant Captain Steve Davis used his knowledge of space lanes to lure enemy ships into an asteroid field where they could be crushed by falling rocks. When the battle finally ended, the human fleet was nearly destroyed. Of 200 ships, only 37 survived. But the Zephyrian Armada had lost over 100 vessels, and hundreds more were damaged. For the first time in their military history, they had failed to achieve quick victory against an inferior enemy. War Marshal. Creever sat in his damaged command center, trying to understand what had happened. "Send a report to High Commander Vextal," he ordered. "The human homeworld is still defended. Request additional ships and troops." But Vextal was already beginning to realize something that terrified him. The humans were not fighting to win in the traditional sense. They were fighting because fighting itself had become their nature when faced with extinction. They were a species that refused to accept defeat, no matter the cost. On Earth, the surviving humans prepared for the next attack. They had lost most of their fleet, but they had proven something important. They could hurt their enemies. They could make the Zephyrians pay a price for conquest that no other species had ever demanded. President Maria Santos addressed the planet that night. "We have shown the galaxy what humans are made of. We may be outgunned and outnumbered, but we are not beaten. As long as one human draws breath, we will continue to fight for our freedom." The first major battle was over, but the war had just begun. And the Zephyrians were beginning to understand they had encountered something completely outside their experience, a species that became stronger through adversity rather than weaker. 6 months after the Great Space Battle, Zephyrian ships hung in orbit around Earth like dark metal birds of prey. The blue and green planet that had seemed so peaceful now bore the scars of occupation. Alien transport ships moved between orbital stations and the surface, carrying troops and supplies for what was supposed to be a simple conquest. War Marshal Krevar had finally taken Earth, but it had cost him 300 ships and 6 months of constant fighting. Even now, with their homeworld occupied, the humans refused to accept defeat. Every day brought new attacks from resistance fighters who seemed to appear from nowhere, strike hard, and vanish back into the population. Sector Marshal Thexmore commanded the occupation forces from a fortified base in what used to be New York City. He had conquered 12 worlds for the Empire, but none had been like this. Other species accepted occupation once their governments surrendered. Humans seemed to consider occupation just another form of warfare. "Sir, we have lost another supply." "Convoy," reported his aide. Human resistance fighters destroyed 6 transport vehicles and captured their weapons before disappearing into the underground tunnels. Thexmore studied the reports with growing frustration. "How many troops do these attacks involve?" "Intelligence suggests no more than 50 humans in each group, sir. But they coordinate across the entire planet. When we respond to one attack, 3 more happen in different locations." The resistance was led by Paul Carter, the former communications director who had helped prepare Earth's defense. After the government fell, he had taken a small group of survivors into the abandoned subway systems beneath the major cities. From there, they had built a network that spanned the globe. Dr. Lisa Park worked with Carter's resistance, using her knowledge of Zephyrian biology to develop new weapons from captured alien equipment. The underground laboratories she had established were crude compared to her old research facilities, but they produced tools that could hurt the occupying forces. "The aliens are stronger than humans, but they are also slower," she explained to a group of new resistance fighters. "Their armor protects them from energy weapons, but conventional explosives still work. Their communication systems can be disrupted with electromagnetic pulses." Young Lucy Adams had become one of the most effective resistance leaders despite being only 19 years old. Her small size and knowledge of the city's hidden passages made her perfect for sabotage missions. She had personally destroyed 4 Zephyrian installations and escaped every time. "The key is to never fight them directly," she taught other fighters. "Hit them when they do not expect it, take what you can, and disappear. Make them afraid to leave their bases." Meanwhile, the surviving human fleet had retreated to the outer colonies under Admiral Cain Rodriguez's command. The colonies had become armed camps, with every civilian involved in the war effort. Mars under Helen Ross had become a fortress world, its mining tunnels converted into military bases that could withstand orbital bombardment. Captain Jake Morrison, whose ship had survived the Battle of Earth, now commanded a small fleet of hybrid vessels built using captured Zephyrian technology. These ships were faster and more maneuverable than either pure human or alien designs, and they struck regularly at Zephyrian supply lines. "Our job is to make this occupation cost them everything," Morrison told his captains during a secret meeting in the asteroid belt. "Every ship they send to Earth is a ship they cannot use to conquer other worlds. Every soldier they need to guard our planet is a soldier who cannot advance their empire." Dr. Sam Collins had established hidden research stations throughout human space, working constantly to improve their technology. The weapons he developed were specifically designed to exploit Zephyrian weaknesses that humans had discovered through months of desperate fighting. "Their shields can stop massive amounts of energy, but they overload if hit by multiple small attacks simultaneously," he explained to Morrison's fleet commanders. "Their armor is nearly impenetrable, but it has weak points at the joints. Their ships are powerful but cannot change direction quickly." The resistance on Earth was proving more costly than the Zephyrians had ever imagined. Veteran soldier Marcus Bell had trained thousands of ordinary citizens to become effective guerrilla fighters. Teachers, shop workers, and students learned to build bombs, set traps, and conduct military operations. Paul Carter's network had grown so large that the Zephyrians could not track all of its members. Resistance cells operated independently, following general plans that allowed them to coordinate without direct communication. When one group was captured, the others continued fighting. "We do not need to win battles," Carter explained in one of his secret broadcasts to the human colonies. "We just need to make sure they never have peace. Every day they stay on Earth must cost them something." Sector Marshal Thexmore found himself requesting additional troops for the fourth time. The humans were supposed to be a conquered people, but they acted like an army that had chosen to fight a different kind of war. His forces controlled the cities during the day, but the humans owned the night. High Commander Vextal received reports from Earth with growing concern. The occupation was supposed to free up resources for new conquests, but instead it was consuming ships and soldiers at an alarming rate. Other subject species were beginning to ask questions about why the Empire needed so many troops to control one small planet. "The humans have adapted their tactics," Vextal's intelligence officer reported. "They no longer attempt to hold territory or protect static positions. Instead, they treat the entire planet as a battlefield where they can strike, anywhere at any time." The most troubling development was that human tactics were spreading to other worlds. Species that had been peacefully conquered for decades were beginning to launch their own resistance movements, inspired by reports of human defiance. On Earth, Dr. Park made a breakthrough when she successfully modified captured Zephyrian weapons to work with human biology. "Their energy rifles are designed for beings with different nervous systems," she explained to the resistance leaders. "But with these modifications, humans can use them effectively." The resistance had also learned to turn the aliens' technology against them. Danny Foster, now 20 years old, had become an expert at hacking Zephyrian computer systems. His electronic attacks could shut down alien equipment from a distance. "Their security assumes that only Zephyrians would have access to their technology," he told other hackers. "They never planned for a species that would steal their equipment and learn to use it." Admiral Rodriguez launched increasingly bold attacks against Zephyrian positions throughout human space. His fleet could not match the aliens in direct battle, but they could strike quickly and disappear, forcing the enemy to spread their forces thin, trying to protect everything. "We are fighting a war of patience," he told his officers. "They want quick victory and easy conquest. We give them endless struggle and constant loss. Eventually, they will decide that holding human space costs more than it is worth." The war had been going on for over a year now, and the Zephyrians were beginning to understand that they had encountered something completely outside their experience. They had conquered thousands of species, but none had ever turned defeat into a different kind of victory. Paul Carter was finally captured during a raid on a Zephyrian supply depot, but his death only inspired more humans to join the resistance. Dr. Park took his place as the leader of Earth's underground war, continuing the fight with the same determination that had defined humanity from the beginning. On Mars, Helen Ross received secret messages from other alien species asking how humans had managed to resist the Empire for so long. The galaxy was watching, and some were beginning to believe that the Zephyrian Empire might not be invincible after all. The occupation continued, but it was nothing like the peaceful control the Zephyrians had established on other worlds. Earth remained a battleground where the cost of victory grew higher every day. And in the darkness between the stars, human ships continued to strike at alien supply lines, proving that some species cannot be truly conquered even when their homeworld falls. 3 years had passed since the Zephyrians first arrived in human space, and what was supposed to be a simple conquest had become the Empire's longest and most costly war. High Commander Vextal stood in his command center on the Zephyrian home world, studying reports that filled him with a cold dread he had never experienced in his centuries of military service. The numbers told a story that no Zephyrian leader wanted to hear. The human war had consumed more ships, troops, and resources than the Empire's previous 100 conquests combined. Worse, other subject species across the galaxy were beginning to rebel, inspired by human resistance. "Sir, we have received another request from Sector Marshal Thexmore," his aide reported. "He needs additional troops for Earth. The human resistance has increased their attacks by 30% this month." Vextal examined the tactical displays showing Zephyrian positions throughout human space. Red markers indicated areas under attack, yellow showed contested regions, and green represented secure positions. There was far too much red and yellow, and the green areas were shrinking. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Park had transformed from a scientist into a military leader who commanded respect from hardened soldiers. The resistance network she inherited from Paul Carter had evolved into something the Zephyrians could not understand or effectively fight. "We do not hold territory because territory can be taken," she explained to a gathering of resistance cell leaders in an abandoned subway station. "We hold the will to fight, and that cannot be conquered." Her latest innovation was a series of hidden factories built in old mines and subway tunnels, producing weapons designed specifically to hurt Zephyrian forces. The alien occupation troops found themselves facing equipment that seemed custom-made to exploit their weaknesses. Lucy Adams, now 22 and a veteran of dozens of operations, had become legendary among both humans and aliens. The Zephyrians had placed a massive bounty on her capture, but she continued to strike at their installations with surgical precision. "The aliens think like an empire," she told her team before their latest mission. "They believe in overwhelming force and permanent control, but we think like humans. We adapt, we improvise, and we never give up." Meanwhile, in space, Commander Chris Wright led the new generation of human warships. These vessels incorporated 3 years of combat experience and captured alien technology, creating hybrid designs that were uniquely effective against Zephyrian forces. Wright's ships were smaller and faster than their enemies, crewed by humans who had grown up during the war. These young officers had learned space combat in actual battles rather than simulations, and they brought a level of tactical innovation that constantly surprised their opponents. "Today we strike the Zephyrian supply base at Kepler Station," Wright announced to his fleet captains. "Intelligence reports indicate they are storing equipment for 3 different invasion forces there. If we can destroy it, we delay their expansion into other star systems." Dr. Neil Ross, Helen's brother and the science officer aboard Wright's flagship, had perfected weapons that could penetrate even the strongest Zephyrian defenses. His innovations were born from desperation and refined through constant warfare. "There. Technology assumes they will always have superior numbers and firepower," Neil explained to the fleet's tactical officers. But human weapons are designed for situations where we are outnumbered and outgunned. That gives us advantages they never planned for. The attack on Kepler Station demonstrated how much human tactics had evolved. Wright's ships used the station's own defense systems against it, hacking alien computers and turning their weapons on their own facilities. When Zephyrian reinforcements arrived, they found their base destroyed and the human fleet already gone. On Earth, the resistance had become so effective that the Zephyrians controlled little more than their main bases during daylight hours. At night, the planet belonged to the humans. Supply convoys moved only with heavy escort, and even then, many never reached their destinations. Sector Marshal Thexmore found himself essentially fighting a war against an entire planet's population. "They do not have armies," he reported to his superiors. "They are an army. Every human civilian is a potential resistance fighter." The psychological impact on Zephyrian forces was becoming serious. Soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds found themselves afraid to patrol Earth's cities. The humans had turned their own planet into a trap where death could come from any direction at any time. Engineer Tony Clark, working from hidden bases in the asteroid belt, had developed new ship designs that used human creativity and Zephyrian technology to create vessels unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These ships could operate independently for months, striking deep into enemy territory. "We cannot build ships as large as theirs," Clark explained to Admiral Rodriguez, "but we can build ships that are smarter, faster, and willing to take risks that no alien commander would accept." Rodriguez's fleet had grown bolder with each passing year. Human ships now regularly penetrated the heart of Zephyrian space, attacking targets that the aliens thought were completely safe. The Empire found itself defending supply lines that stretched across hundreds of star systems. Every resource they used to protect their rear areas is a resource they cannot use for new conquests, Rodriguez told his captains. "We are not just fighting for human freedom. We are fighting to stop their expansion across the galaxy." High Commander Vextal faced rebellion from his own officers for the first time in his career. War Marshal Krevar had requested permission to withdraw from human space and use nuclear weapons to destroy all human worlds, ending the war through genocide. "The cost of this conquest exceeds any possible benefit," Krevar argued. "These beings cannot be governed. They can only be eliminated or avoided." But Vextal understood that retreating from human space would encourage every subject species in the Empire to rebel. "If we cannot defeat one small species, how can we control thousands of worlds?" he asked his council. The war had fundamentally changed the nature of galactic politics. For the first time in millennia, the Zephyrian Empire appeared vulnerable. Species that had accepted alien rule for generations were beginning to ask why they could not fight as the humans fought. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding a fleet of his own, led the deepest penetration into Zephyrian space yet attempted. His mission was to prove that human forces could threaten the alien homeworlds themselves. "We are not trying to conquer their empire," Morrison explained to his crews. "We are trying to show them that continuing this war will eventually bring the fighting to their own doorstep." The raid was a complete success. Human ships appeared in the Zephyrian core systems, destroyed several military installations, and escaped before the aliens could respond effectively. For the first time in their history, the Zephyrians felt vulnerable in their own space. Dr. Park, leading the Earth resistance from her hidden command center, received reports that filled her with hope. "The aliens are requesting peace negotiations," she announced to her cell leaders. "Not surrender terms, actual negotiations between equals." But the resistance had learned to be suspicious of alien promises. "We negotiate from strength, not weakness," Park declared. "Until they withdraw from all human worlds, we continue fighting." The 3-year war had transformed humanity from a minor species on the galactic edge into a force that commanded respect throughout the galaxy. They had proven that some species could not be conquered because they refused to accept the concept of defeat. As the fourth year of war began, the Zephyrians faced a choice no empire in galactic history had ever confronted. Make peace with an inferior species, or risk the stability of their entire civilization in an unwinnable conflict. The humans had lost their home world, but gained something more valuable. They had shown the galaxy that freedom was worth any price, and that some spirits could never be broken. Emperor Zakthal of the Zephyrian Empire had ruled for over 2 centuries, but he had never faced a crisis like this. Standing in his palace overlooking the capital city of his home world, he studied reports that told the story of an empire in trouble. The human war, now in its 5th year, had become a cancer that was destroying everything his people had built. "Your Imperial Majesty," his chief advisor said carefully, "the rebellion has spread to 47 subject worlds. The humans have somehow inspired species that accepted our rule for generations." The Emperor's massive form moved slowly as he turned from the window. "How many ships have we lost to this one species?" "Over 800 vessels, Your Majesty. But the real cost is in resources. We are spending more to control human space than we gain from 12 other conquered systems combined." On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Cain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching human and alien ships prepare for what everyone hoped would be the final battle of the war. But this battle would be fought with words instead of weapons. The peace negotiations were taking place on a neutral station in empty space, far from both human and Zephyrian worlds. For the first time in galactic history, the mighty empire was negotiating with a species they had failed to conquer. Dr. Sam Collins had spent months preparing for this moment. His analysis of Zephyrian psychology suggested that the aliens could accept peace if it allowed them to save face while ending the costly war. "They need to be able to tell their people that the humans are worthy opponents, not defeated enemies," he explained to the negotiating team. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, led the human delegation. Beside him sat Dr. Lisa Park, whose leadership of the Earth resistance had made her famous throughout the galaxy. They carried the hopes of every human in space. Emperor Zakthal himself had come to the negotiations, a decision that shocked his advisors. No Zephyrian emperor had ever personally negotiated with a subject species, but the humans were no longer subjects. They had proven themselves equals through 5 years of warfare. "Your species has cost our empire more than any conflict in our history," the emperor said when the negotiations began. "We underestimated your determination." Admiral Morrison looked directly at the massive alien leader. "Your Imperial Majesty, we fight because freedom is the most important thing in the universe to us. We would rather die free than live as slaves." "That much has become clear," Zakthal replied. "Your species has shown capabilities that our analysts never predicted. You fight harder when defeat becomes certain. You unite when others would divide. You sacrifice for future generations rather than accepting comfortable slavery." Dr. Park presented the human terms. "We want recognition as an independent species with the right to control our own worlds. We want all Zephyrian forces withdrawn from human space. And we want guarantees that the Empire will not attack other species that choose to resist conquest." The Emperor's advisors looked shocked. The humans were not just negotiating for their own freedom. They were trying to change the fundamental nature of how the Empire operated. "You ask us to abandon the expansion that has defined our civilization for millennia," one of the Zephyrian negotiators protested. "We ask you to choose expansion through cooperation rather than conquest," Morrison replied. "The galaxy is large enough for many free species." Back on Earth, the resistance fighters watched the negotiations through secret communication links. Lucy Adams, now a commander in her own right, led celebrations in the tunnels beneath New York as reports arrived of the aliens' willingness to negotiate seriously. "We have not won yet," Dr. Park's voice came through the hidden speakers. "But We have proven that humans cannot be conquered. That victory belongs to every person who refused to give up hope. The negotiations continued for weeks. The humans had advantages their enemies had never expected. 5 years of warfare had given them detailed knowledge of Zephyrian technology, tactics, and psychology. They negotiated not as defeated subjects, begging for mercy, but as equals who had earned their place at the table. Dr. Neil Ross presented evidence that human technology had advanced far enough to threaten Zephyrian core worlds. Our ships can now reach any target in your empire, he explained calmly. Continuing this war will eventually bring the fighting to your most important worlds. Emperor Zakthal realized he was facing a species unlike any in the Empire's database. The humans had used 5 years of desperate warfare to evolve from a minor civilization into a major galactic power. They had learned to fight, to adapt, and to innovate under pressure that would have destroyed other species. High Commander Vextal, attending the negotiations as a military advisor, admitted something that shocked everyone present. Your Imperial Majesty, our forces cannot defeat the humans through conventional warfare. They do not fight to win territory or resources. They fight because fighting itself has become their nature when their freedom is threatened. The breakthrough came when the humans offered something unexpected, an alliance rather than just a peace treaty. The galaxy contains threats that neither of our species can face alone, Admiral Morrison explained, but together we could explore new regions and face new challenges as partners rather than enemies. Dr. Collins presented his analysis of galactic politics. The war has changed everything, Your Imperial Majesty. Other species are watching to see if the Empire can adapt or if it will collapse trying to maintain old ways in a new galaxy. Emperor, Zakthal faced the most important decision in Zephyrian history. He could continue the war and risk destroying his empire in an unwinnable conflict, or he could accept that the galaxy had changed and the empire must change with it. Your species has taught us something we thought impossible, the Emperor finally said. You have shown that some civilizations grow stronger through adversity rather than weaker. Perhaps it is time for our empire to learn that lesson as well. The Sol Accords were signed in a ceremony that was broadcast throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire officially recognized humanity as an equal species with the right to control their own destiny. All alien forces would withdraw from human space within 1 year. Most importantly, the Empire agreed to offer membership rather than conquest to future species they encountered. Admiral Morrison stood beside Emperor Zakthal as they signed the historic agreement. Your Imperial Majesty, we hope this is the beginning of a new era for the galaxy. Admiral Morrison, your species has proven that some things are worth fighting for regardless of the odds. Perhaps our empire will be stronger for learning that lesson. Captain Jake Morrison returned to Earth 6 months later aboard the rebuilt UES Defiance. The planet still bore scars from the occupation, but reconstruction was proceeding rapidly. More importantly, the human spirit remained unbroken. Standing on the observation deck of his ship as Earth grew larger in the view screen, Morrison reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had not won through superior technology or overwhelming force. They had won by refusing to accept defeat even when defeat seemed certain. Dr. Park, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to the Zephyrian Empire, joined him at the viewing port. Jake, do you think they really understand what happened here? I think they understand that they encountered something completely outside their experience, Morrison replied. A species that fights not to conquer, but to remain free. In the Zephyrian capital, High Commander Vextal updated the Empire's vast database with a new entry. Under species classification, he typed Homo sapiens, classification, apex persistent. Conquest not recommended under any circumstances, diplomatic contact only. The note he added would be studied by alien military commanders for generations. This species does not fight to win in conventional terms. They fight because surrender is not part of their nature. When facing extinction, they become more dangerous, rather than less. Consider them unconquerable regardless of technological or numerical advantages. The war was over, but the legend of humanity had just begun. Across the galaxy, other species looked to the humans as proof that freedom was possible, and that some spirits could never be broken. The Zephyrian Empire had gained something more valuable than another conquered world. They had gained allies who would fight beside them when true threats emerged from the unknown depths of space. Earth was free, humanity was recognized as equals. Among the stars, and the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Some species fight to live, but humans were the species that fights till the end, and sometimes that made all the difference in a universe full of wonders and dangers yet to be discovered.